All right, now I'm going to bring in a guy who did a whole movie about this. It's called HEIST, Who Stole the American Dream. And his name is, in fact, wait, let me show you. I'm so worked up. Let me show you a clip from the movie first.
We are the 99%.
This is not just about a crash on Wall Street. It's not just about a recession. What's happened has revealed how rotten underneath the U.S. economy has become.
Big business doesn't like the government to tell it what to do. They don't want anybody to interfere with their ability to make money in the way that they see fit.
All right. Now, the co-producer and co-director of that movie is Donald Goldmacher, and he's showing us now. Donald, great to have you here.
Great to be here, Jay.
All right. So, look, I've shown the heist. We've shown it a million times in terms of, what they do. How do they do it?
Well, how they do it is they have bought and paid for the Congress, the White House. They have helped to set up a Supreme Court over the decades that is increasingly right-wing, but is also increasingly corporate. And in fact, the villain in our piece, the beginning villain, is a Supreme Court justice who wrote a secret memo called the Powell Memo for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce back in August 1971, in which he laid out a grand strategy for how corporations could take over this country.
No, by the way, this is not fiction. This is absolutely true. He writes for the Chamber of Commerce, and then Nixon goes, hey, brilliant idea on capturing the Supreme Court. Welcome to the Supreme Court. He puts them on there. Look, I can give you a whole dissertation on this. In 1976, Buckley versus Vallejo, deciding justice. Lewis Powell, the guy who wrote the memo. First National Bank of Boston versus Bellotti, 1978, deciding justice. Lewis Powell, 5-4, and says corporations can spend money on politicians. And guess what? At the end of the day, they bought all the politicians. So, look, how do we end this nightmare? I know it's an impossible question, but Donald, give it a shot.
Well, what we see in the film, or is what we illustrate, is that people have to organize from the bottom up and challenge at the top simultaneously. So we give several examples of how people can begin to disengage themselves from these mega corporations and from, very frankly, a corrupt two-party system that does not work for anybody anymore. And we're not suggesting they start a third party, but, the United States has a history of third party and a history of social movements that do push progressive reforms in this country. And that's what it's going to, frankly, take. It's going to take challenging a Chevron in Richmond, California. And you know what happened in Richmond last week. Well, there's a progressive group there in Richmond that took Chevron to task, put an initiative on the ballot, and got them taxed at 440 times what they previously had been taxed at. We show a worker-owned co-op. We also show how to move your money.
Right.
That's the simplest, most important thing Americans should learn how to do. Take your money out of these big banks that you were just describing.
Yeah, you better take it out before all of a sudden they turn around and go, oh, golly gee, how did we lose all your money? I guess we're free to go.
Well, no. The Federal Reserve will write another check for them.
Oh, well, then I'm sure it'll be fine.
And the Department of Justice, of course, will continue their deferred prosecution agreements.
Right.
That's the deal.
It's sickening. It's sickening.
So credit unions is what we propose.
That's not a bad idea. And you should look into the credit unions, and you should look into the movie Heist. Donald, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. All right, now when we come back, as all this is going on, and as the Republicans are crying about, oh my God, the Democrats are so unfair and they're so tough on us, I'm going to show you 4 different Republican lunatics that make any Democratic line of attack look incredibly tame by comparison.